What if your birth wasn't the beginning? What if your death isn't the end? What if your soul has walked this earth many times, wearing different names, faces, and stories, leaving traces hidden in dreams, phobias, talents, and the uncanny sense that you've been here before? Reincarnation isn't just a mystical idea. It is a pulse, a whisper from the eternal, reminding us that life is a spiral, not a straight line. In this video, we will step into the mystery, trace the footprints of past lives, and ask the question that echoes across time: is reincarnation real? Reincarnation, or the cycle of rebirth, has been a cornerstone of many ancient traditions: Hinduism, Buddhism, certain Gnostic teachings, and indigenous philosophies. But today, modern science, psychology, and thousands of personal testimonies are beginning to converge with the spiritual, opening a new chapter in our understanding of the soul. From children who remember lives they never lived, to spontaneous knowledge of foreign languages, to birthmarks aligning with past life trauma, the evidence is growing. But reincarnation is not just about who you were, it's about why you're here. What if your struggles, your talents, even your relationships are echoes from lives once lived? What if healing doesn't begin in this lifetime, but continues across lifetimes? 1. The soul's journey. Understanding the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. To understand reincarnation, we must first understand the soul, not as a concept, but as the living, breathing essence of who we are beneath form, beyond thought, before time. The soul is not born when the body is. It is eternal. It travels through lifetimes like a traveler passes through cities, each one offering lessons, experiences, and mirrors. In Eastern philosophy, this journey is known as samsara, the wheel of birth, death, and rebirth. But the soul is not spinning randomly, it is evolving, and reincarnation is its sacred school. Imagine the soul as a divine flame that splits into sparks, each spark entering a different life, wearing a different name, carrying a different mission. With each incarnation, it gathers insight, heals wounds, releases karma, expands wisdom, and yet upon entering each new life, it forgets. Because only in forgetting can we fully immerse, choose, feel, grow. Reincarnation is the dance between remembering and forgetting, between story and essence. But why does the soul return? Because there are lessons that cannot be mastered in one life. Love, forgiveness, humility, compassion, boundaries. These are not intellectual understandings. They are embodied through contrast, through living as the victim and the perpetrator, the healer and the wounded, the lost and the seeker. Through these roles, the soul doesn't accumulate righteousness, it accumulates depth. Different traditions describe reincarnation differently. In Hinduism, the soul Atman is bound to the cycle of samsara until it reaches moksha, liberation. In Buddhism, reincarnation is shaped by karma, the law of cause and effect, until nirvana is attained. In certain mystical Christian texts, reincarnation was once part of early teachings before being removed from canon. And indigenous cultures across the globe hold deep-rooted beliefs in ancestral return, soul migration, and cyclical time. Modern understandings add to this mosaic. Quantum physics hints at consciousness beyond matter. Near-death experiences offer glimpses of life between lives, and past life regression therapy opens doors to memories stored not in the brain, but in the soul's field. To walk the path of the reincarnating soul is to honor your present life as both precious and impermanent. Precious because it is uniquely crafted for your current evolution. Impermanent because it is one note in a much larger song. You may feel drawn to certain cultures, places, periods of history, not by chance, but because your soul remembers. You may struggle with inexplicable fears, patterns, or longings, not as random suffering, but as echoes asking for resolution. You may meet someone and feel an instant bond or aversion, not because of personality, but because the soul recognizes. This journey also brings responsibility, not guilt, but clarity. If your life is chosen, if your experiences are soul-selected, then you are not a victim of fate. You are the co-creator of meaning. You do not need to know all your past lives to evolve, but when you live with reverence for the soul's arc, each moment becomes sacred. Each encounter becomes holy. Each challenge becomes a classroom. Reincarnation does not promise ease, but it offers purpose. And in that purpose there is power, not the power to control, but the power to choose. To choose presence, to choose growth, to choose to respond, not react, to bless, not blame, to awaken, not sleepwalk. And so we return again and again until the lessons become love, until the stories become wisdom, until the self becomes the self. In the next part of our journey, we will look at the most astonishing stories from children who remember lives they never lived. Stories that may shake the very foundation of what we think we know about life and identity. 2. Children who remember. The most compelling cases of past life recall. Imagine a child barely old enough to speak, suddenly recounting vivid memories of another life, one lived decades earlier in a distant land under a different name. This child knows names, places, even intimate personal details that no one around them has ever heard before. This is not fantasy. It's a documented phenomenon that has captivated researchers and challenged long-standing scientific assumptions about memory and identity. One of the most well-known cases comes from Dr. Ian Stevenson, whose groundbreaking work at the University of Virginia involved the meticulous documentation of over 2,500 cases of children from around the world who appeared to recall past lives. These cases included names, dates, family relationships, and even causes of death, all later verified through interviews, records, and investigations. For example, a young boy in Lebanon remembered being a mechanic killed by a gunshot wound. His birthmark matched the bullet wound, and the village he described, where he claimed to have once lived, actually existed, along with the family and business he spoke of. In another case, a girl in India insisted she was from a town miles away, belonged to a different religion, and had been married before her untimely death. Her past life family confirmed her memories in chilling detail. These are just a few among thousands. What makes these stories remarkable is not just their emotional power, but their precision. Children often begin sharing these memories between ages 2 and 5, and the level of detail is often extraordinary. They may describe rituals, dialects, or social customs unfamiliar to their current family and context. Many even recognize former relatives from photographs or recount events that are later confirmed to be historically accurate. What makes the phenomenon even more perplexing is that the memories usually fade as the child ages, often disappearing by age 7. This aligns eerily well with traditional beliefs in many spiritual systems that say the soul settles in completely by that age, and the veil of memory thickens. The psychological dimension of these cases is equally compelling. Many children suffer intense emotions linked to their memories, nightmares, inexplicable fears, longing for their former families, or a disconnection from their current identity. In some cases, healing or ritual acknowledgement of the past life helps release the burden. Dr. Jim Tucker, Stevenson's successor, observed that therapeutic closure, visiting the remembered place or performing a symbolic farewell, often brings relief to the child and allows them to fully integrate into their present life. Skeptics argue that such stories could be attributed to suggestive parenting or fantasy-prone behavior, but the rigor of investigation in many cases undercuts this claim. In most instances, the parents were confused or skeptical themselves. The children began speaking of their past lives long before they could have been influenced by media, social cues, or storytelling. Often, the families being investigated had no connection to the child's family and were even from different cultural, religious, or economic backgrounds. Modern researchers have also examined physical correlations. Some children are born with unusual birthmarks, deformities, or scars that correspond eerily with the fatal injuries described in their claimed past lives. Stevenson categorized dozens of such cases, many with hospital or autopsy reports from the deceased individuals that confirm the injury sites. This raises compelling questions about how trauma might be imprinted not only on the soul, but physically carried into another life. Additionally, neurological and consciousness studies suggest that memory may not be exclusively stored in the brain. Concepts like morphic resonance, proposed by biologist Rupert Sheldrake, explore the idea of a shared memory field. In this view, past life memory could be less about personal recall and more about energetic access, tapping into a wider informational matrix carried through the soul's frequency. These stories challenge our definitions of personhood, identity, and even time itself. They suggest that who we are is more than who we've become. It includes who we've been. They urge us to consider that memory is layered, consciousness is non-local, and death is not an end, but a threshold. The implication is radical. If children remember lives before their current one, then perhaps we are all echoes, living, loving, grieving, and growing across centuries. Even if one doesn't believe these stories prove reincarnation, they open the door to mystery. They ask us to listen, not just with skepticism, but with soul. They remind us that the universe may be more interconnected, intelligent, and compassionate than we've ever dared to imagine. In our next chapter, we'll look deeper into how fears, gifts, and emotional signatures might travel from one life to another, what some call the soul's imprint, and how these legacies silently shape our present selves. Number 3, soul imprints. How memory, fear, and talent travel across lifetimes. How is it that some people are born with astonishing musical ability, a crippling fear of water, or an unshakable sense of déjà vu for a place they've never visited? How do we explain spontaneous knowledge, deep aversions, or overwhelming empathy for cultures, languages, and histories that have no place in our current life experience? The answer may lie in what mystics and metaphysicians call the soul imprint. This is the energetic residue of experiences from past incarnations that silently shape who we are today. The soul imprint is not just memory, it is frequency. Just as a song can leave an echo long after the music stops, each life leaves a resonance in the soul's field. This resonance carries emotional textures, learned skills, deep-seated fears, and unresolved karma. And while the conscious mind may forget, the subconscious does not. It whispers through dreams, reactions, passions, and compulsions, guiding us toward the very lessons we came here to integrate. One of the clearest examples of soul imprinting is the emergence of talents at a young age. Children who compose music without training, speak languages they've never heard, or intuitively understand complex philosophies often do so not because of brilliance alone, but because the soul has carried these capacities forward. These aren't anomalies, they're echoes, remembered mastery from lives where those skills were cultivated through devotion, trial, and experience. The same is true for fears. Many people carry irrational phobias of water, fire, heights, crowds, or specific animals, without any traumatic incident in this lifetime to explain them. Past life regression therapy often reveals startling connections. A fear of drowning linked to a life lost at sea, a terror of public speaking rooted in persecution for expressing truth, a fear of fire connected to wartime devastation. These imprints are not flaws, they are flags, signals pointing to unhealed experiences the soul still holds. But imprinting isn't limited to trauma or skill. It extends to emotional dynamics. A person who repeatedly attracts partners who abandon them may be unconsciously trying to resolve an old pattern of betrayal. Someone who feels a profound call to protect animals, forests, or specific communities may be remembering a past incarnation of stewardship or violation. We're not just healing this life. We're weaving together threads from many. Carl Jung once wrote, "The soul contains in itself the faculty of relationship to the archetypes." In Jungian terms, the soul imprint could be seen as an archetypal signature, our unique energetic code shaped by countless experiences across dimensions of time. These signatures influence not only personal destiny, but collective contribution. They shape the art we create, the causes we champion, the questions that haunt us, and the healing we feel called to facilitate in the world. Modern neuroscience supports the notion that deeply embedded responses can be activated by stimuli the conscious brain doesn't recognize. Implicit memory, procedural memory, and even generational trauma stored epigenetically all point to the truth that we carry far more than our personal biography. The soul imprint, then, may be the metaphysical counterpart to this phenomenon, a psychic DNA encoded with soul memory. Recognizing our soul imprint can be profoundly liberating. It allows us to stop asking, "What's wrong with me?" and start asking, "What's trying to emerge through me?" We become curious rather than critical. We explore our affinities, triggers, and talents not as puzzles to fix, but as sacred data from the soul's archive. With this awareness, healing becomes less about eliminating symptoms and more about integrating the deeper story they reveal. So how do you begin to access your own soul imprints? Pay attention to what repeats, what themes show up in your dreams, what subjects fascinate you irrationally, what makes your body contract or expand without explanation. These are all clues. Practices like deep meditation, past life regression, journaling with intention, and dream work can unlock more. But ultimately, soul imprints are not about glorifying the past. They are about anchoring your purpose in the present. They are the unfinished sentences of your soul, waiting for this life to become the completion. When you listen, honor, and respond, you become the bridge between who you've been and who you're here to become. In the next chapter, we'll explore the strange phenomenon of déjà vu and soul recognition, how fleeting moments of familiarity might be evidence that we've been here before, and how certain people, places, and timelines echo louder in our soul's memory than others. Number 4. The enigma of recognition. Exploring déjà vu and familiar souls. You're walking down a street in a city you've never visited, and suddenly every stone, every shadow feels intimately familiar. You hear a song from a culture you don't know, and tears fill your eyes before a single lyric is sung. You meet someone new, yet feel an inexplicable closeness, as if you've known them for lifetimes. These are more than coincidences. They are glimpses, fleeting fragments of a deeper memory stirring within. Some call them déjà vu, others speak of soul recognition, but beneath both is a mystery that touches the core of who we are. Déjà vu, translated from French as already seen, has long fascinated both scientists and mystics. In neuroscience, it's typically understood as a temporary miscommunication between short-term and long-term memory processing, a kind of neural anomaly. But this explanation doesn't quite capture the emotional weight these moments carry. In the spiritual view, déjà vu may be more than a brain glitch. It could be the soul recalling a familiar timeline, a pre-life agreement, or a location visited in another incarnation. Then there's the experience of soul recognition. Have you ever locked eyes with someone and felt an overwhelming familiarity, a deep resonance that bypasses thought? This kind of recognition has been noted across cultures and faiths as a mark of prior connection. It's the sense that you've shared lifetimes with another soul, playing different roles: friend, parent, child, lover, rival, but always meeting again for mutual evolution. Many metaphysical teachings describe soul groups or clusters, souls that travel through time together, reincarnating in different configurations to support one another's learning. Your closest relationships may not be new. They may be ancient agreements, renewed each lifetime for a different lesson. The reason these connections feel so immediate and often so intense is because they've been carried across multiple lives. Scientific models don't fully address these phenomena, but quantum theories of consciousness are beginning to suggest that time is not as linear as we perceive. If time folds, or if memory and identity exist beyond the physical brain, then what we call recognition might be the overlap of parallel timelines, or echoes of unprocessed energetic memory. Places can also evoke soul-level memory. Feeling at home in a foreign country, or having intense emotional responses to certain landscapes, temples, ruins, or architectural styles may be signs of soul memory being stirred. Even irrational fears or fascinations tied to historical events or cultures can be expressions of unresolved or remembered experiences from another incarnation. It's important, however, not to jump to conclusions. Not every strong emotion signals a past life, but when these experiences occur with persistent clarity, emotional intensity, or uncanny specificity, they warrant reflection. Journaling, meditation, dream work, or past life regression guided by a trained practitioner can help discern resonance from projection. What truly matters is not proving these moments to others, but understanding what they reveal to you. Whether or not déjà vu and soul recognition are scientifically provable, they are psycho-spiritual invitations to pause, to listen, to honor the complexity of your being, to acknowledge that who you are may be woven from far more than this lifetime alone. In the next part of our journey, we'll turn inward once again, this time to the body. We'll examine the strange but compelling link between physical birthmarks and unresolved imprints from lives past. Number 5. Birthmarks and bodily clues, traces of trauma or memory. One of the most intriguing and physical lines of evidence in reincarnation studies is the presence of birthmarks and bodily anomalies that appear to correspond to injuries or markings from a previous life. These are not ordinary skin blemishes, but specific, often unusual, and sometimes medically inexplicable marks that align with the descriptions of death or injury as reported by individuals who claim to remember their past lives, particularly in childhood. This phenomenon has been most extensively studied by Dr. Ian Stevenson, a psychiatrist from the University of Virginia, who documented over 200 such cases in his work spanning 4 decades. In these instances, children reported vivid memories of a prior life and also bore physical signs, birthmarks, deformities, or scars, that corresponded exactly to fatal wounds or significant trauma experienced by the deceased person they claimed to have been. In many of these cases, autopsy reports or eyewitness testimonies confirmed the location and nature of the wounds. One of the most famous cases involved a young boy in India who claimed to have been shot in the chest in a previous life. He had a distinct birthmark over his heart, and upon investigation, it was found that the man he claimed to have been did in fact die from a gunshot wound to that exact location. The birthmark was not simply a pigment variation. It had a cratered texture, suggestive of a healed wound. While skeptics argue that such coincidences could be due to random chance or psychological suggestion, the statistical odds of multiple, highly specific anatomical correlations, along with verifiable historical details, are striking. In one study, Stevenson calculated that the chances of such matches being random were astronomically low. But how could trauma, particularly death trauma, carry forward into a new life? Traditional biology cannot yet account for this. However, theories in energy medicine and consciousness studies offer possible explanations. Some propose that the subtle body, or energetic field, retains the memory of significant emotional or physical events. At death, if the soul carries unresolved trauma, it may imprint these energies on the new body during incarnation. This energetic imprint might then manifest physically as a birthmark or anomaly. In spiritual traditions, this idea isn't new. Tibetan Buddhism, certain yogic texts, and shamanic cultures all speak of energetic residues being carried from life to life. In Chinese medicine and Indian Ayurveda, scars and imprints on the body are often seen as reflections of deeper karmic patterns. More compelling still is that these physical imprints often correlate with behavioral or emotional patterns. A child with a birthmark on the neck, corresponding to a reported strangulation in a past life, may exhibit strong fear of collars or choking. Another child with leg deformities linked to a life as a soldier who lost his limbs may show fear of walking or a reluctance to play physically, despite no medical cause. Such patterns are difficult to explain away purely through genetics or environment. They suggest a deeper continuum of experience, one that includes the body but is not limited to it. Of course, caution is necessary. Not all birthmarks are past life related, and jumping to conclusions can lead to unnecessary fear or confusion. What matters most is context. Does the physical mark accompany spontaneous past life memories? Are there emotional responses or phobias tied to that part of the body? Is there corroborating historical evidence? If the answer to these questions is yes, then such cases deserve deeper inquiry, not only as academic curiosities, but as openings for healing. Some individuals have reported relief from chronic pain or fear after resolving the emotional trauma associated with a past life wound. Through regression, ritual, or conscious acknowledgement, the body seems to respond not only to medicine, but to memory. In these stories, the body becomes a storyteller, a sacred map whispering of who we've been, how we've suffered, and what remains to be healed. In the next part of our journey, we'll explore karma, not just as a cosmic system of reward or punishment, but as a dynamic force that draws unresolved lessons across lifetimes, shaping relationships, obstacles, and opportunities in this one. Number 6. Karmic entanglements, lessons that return until mastered. Karma is perhaps one of the most misunderstood yet foundational concepts within spiritual traditions that speak of reincarnation. To many in the West, it is seen as a form of moral bookkeeping. Do good and receive reward, do wrong and face punishment. But in deeper metaphysical teachings, from Hinduism, Buddhism, and mystical branches of other philosophies, karma is not punitive, it is corrective. It is not retribution, it is relationship. Karma represents the energetic echoes of our choices, returning not to punish us, but to refine us. And when viewed through the lens of reincarnation, it becomes clear, karma follows the soul across lifetimes, until its lesson is learned, integrated, and transmuted. Karmic entanglements are patterns, deep, often subconscious energies woven into our relationships, our circumstances, and our inner conflicts. You may feel an inexplicable tension with a person you've just met, or find yourself trapped in the same toxic dynamic, life after life, even though the faces change. You may experience recurring obstacles in love, health, or purpose, even after addressing every logical angle. In the karmic model, these are not random, they are invitations. Let us take the example of unresolved betrayal. A soul who betrayed another in one life may return in another to experience the reverse, to understand the pain of being deceived, to develop empathy, or to restore balance. This does not mean a soul is condemned to endless cycles of victimhood or guilt. Rather, it suggests that souls choose experiences not to suffer but to expand. The experiences of betrayal, forgiveness, and trust are not opposites. They are facets of one lesson being explored from different angles. Karma also shapes family dynamics. Many traditions speak of familial karma, where generations are linked by patterns of abandonment, addiction, silence, or control. Reincarnational teachings suggest that souls often reincarnate within the same families or soul groups to resolve unfinished emotional contracts. Your mother in this life may have been your daughter before. Your sibling may have once been your teacher. These shifting roles allow for profound opportunities to heal, understand, and complete the karmic thread. One of the most common karmic signals is emotional intensity. When a situation or relationship provokes a response disproportionate to the present moment facts, it may indicate a karmic charge. You're not just reacting to this person, you're reacting to every echo of them across time. These are moments when the soul is trying to awaken consciousness, to complete the cycle rather than repeat it. Karmic entanglements can also manifest as compulsions or aversions, an inexplicable fear of commitment, an obsession with justice, an attraction to specific regions or historical periods. These may not arise from this life alone. Rather, they may be soul memories stirring, unresolved scripts seeking closure. Importantly, karma is not fate. It does not remove free will. It does, however, establish the field in which free will operates. Think of karma as the weather. Your actions are the clothing you choose. You cannot always avoid the storm, but you can decide how you'll meet it. Through awareness, intention, and compassionate action, karma can be worked through, released rather than relived. Modern therapeutic models increasingly recognize the importance of ancestral trauma and energetic inheritance. Psychologists such as Mark Wolin have explored how inherited family trauma influences identity and behavior across generations. This echoes ancient spiritual teachings that the soul carries both memory and momentum, patterns that persist until transmuted through consciousness. Practices like meditation, shadow work, conscious communication, and karmic regression therapy can help bring karmic patterns into awareness. Forgiveness, not as absolution but as liberation, is one of the most powerful karmic balancers. When you release the need to be right, to be repaid, or to repeat the story, you create a new karmic trajectory. You become the master rather than the echo of your experiences. Recognizing karmic patterns is not about blaming yourself or others. It's about reclaiming authorship. It's about stepping out of the cycle of unconscious reactivity and into the spiral of conscious evolution. With each choice to love, to speak truth, to break silence, to set boundaries, to offer compassion, you loosen the knot, you unbind the past, you clear space for the soul's fuller expression. In the next part of our exploration, we'll move into the realm of soulmates. Not as fantasy, but as sacred catalysts, examining how love itself can be a powerful mirror for our karmic journey and spiritual remembrance. 7. Love across lifetimes. The mystery of soulmates and reunion love, in its deepest essence, is more than emotion. It is memory. It is recognition. It is the soul whispering, "I know you." Across cultures, myths, and spiritual traditions, we find echoes of a powerful idea that some souls are bound beyond time, that there are those we have loved before and will meet again. These are not fairy tales. They are clues, glimpses into the intricate web of reincarnation, where love is the thread that binds lifetime to lifetime. Soulmates, in the reincarnational view, are not perfect matches. They are mirrors. They come into our lives not to complete us, but to awaken us. Sometimes they arrive with comfort, other times with chaos, but always, their presence catalyzes something profound. They help us remember parts of ourselves we had forgotten. They trigger healing, challenge our shadows, and often ignite intense spiritual growth. You may feel an instant connection to someone, a sense of ease, déjà vu, or an inexplicable pull. You may finish each other's sentences, share unspoken understanding, or find your lives have been circling the same truths. These are often signs of past life ties. But soul recognition is not confined to romance. A soulmate can be a friend, sibling, mentor, or even a stranger whose presence shakes something awake in you. In Eastern traditions, the concept of karma bandhan refers to the karmic bond between two souls. These bonds are formed not just by love, but by unresolved contracts, lessons left incomplete. A partner in this life may have been your betrayer, your savior, your rival, or your student in another. Each meeting in this life offers the chance to elevate the story, to break a cycle, to choose differently, to love more consciously. Romantic soulmates often carry the most intense charge. There's passion, yes, but also resistance, longing, fear, and sometimes pain. That is because the soul remembers not only the joy, but the unfinished business. Soulmate connections are rarely about happily ever after. They are about depth, and sometimes depth requires separation, reflection, or surrender. But when two souls recognize each other, something profound happens. Time bends, healing accelerates. The veils between lifetimes thin. It's as if the soul says, "You again, let's finish what we began." This doesn't mean every intense relationship is a soulmate, nor does it mean that every soulmate is meant to stay. Some come only for a season, but change you forever. Others stay a lifetime, helping you unfold your highest path. The key is not to attach, but to learn, to love with presence rather than possession. And what about twin flames, the idea that one soul splits into two incarnations, seeking reunion across time? While this concept is debated, many spiritual traditions speak of divine counterparts, souls who carry complementary frequencies. Their union is not just romantic, it is alchemical. When they meet, their combined energy activates something larger than themselves, a shared mission, a healing wave, a spiritual awakening. Meeting a soulmate or twin flame often triggers a deep inner shift. Old wounds surface for healing. Past life memories may arise. You may feel overwhelmed, even destabilized. But this is part of the process. Soul-connected relationships accelerate evolution. They strip away illusions and push you toward authenticity. If navigated with awareness, they become sacred containers for transformation. So how do you recognize a soulmate? There is no formula, but look for synchronicity. Look for resonance. Look for relationships that stretch you, stir your soul, and call you home to yourself. Pay attention to the ones who make you feel seen beyond words, who activate both your light and your shadow, who challenge you to grow, and most importantly, become your own soulmate first. The more you honor your soul, the more clearly you'll recognize those who do the same. Love that lasts beyond lifetimes begins with the love you cultivate in this one, for yourself, your truth, your path. In the next part of our journey, we'll explore how past life memories can be retrieved, not just spontaneously, but through conscious practices like regression therapy, and how these insights can open new portals of healing, meaning, and direction in our current lives. 8. Regression and revelation, past life therapy, and what it unlocks. What if the key to your greatest healing isn't in your childhood, but in a life long before this one? What if your persistent phobias, unexplainable grief, or lifelong patterns are echoes from another existence, waiting to be acknowledged, released, and integrated? This is the premise of past life regression therapy, the idea that the soul carries memory beyond birth, and that through intentional exploration, those memories can be retrieved for deep transformation. Past life regression, PLR, is a therapeutic technique that guides individuals into altered states of consciousness, often through hypnosis, meditation, or deep visualization, to access memories stored beyond the conscious mind. These aren't typical memories. They emerge like stories, sometimes fragmented, sometimes vivid, always layered with emotion and symbolic resonance. What makes them compelling is not their probability, but their healing potential. For many, simply recalling the origin of a lifelong fear or chronic pain is enough to dissolve it. Clients in regression sessions often describe entire scenes, lives in other countries, wearing different clothes, speaking unfamiliar languages, surrounded by historical details they had no prior knowledge of. But even more than the factual content, it's the emotional charge that matters. The moment of a violent death, the abandonment of a child, the trauma of war or loss, these are often the memories that shape soul imprints and carry unresolved energetic weight. Dr. Brian Weiss, a traditionally trained psychiatrist, became a pioneer in this field after a patient unexpectedly began recalling past life scenes during hypnotherapy. What began as an anomaly became a transformative body of work. In his book, Many Lives, Many Masters, he describes how uncovering these lives led to miraculous breakthroughs in his patients' mental, emotional, and even physical health. Skeptics question the accuracy of these memories, arguing they may be confabulations, archetypal fantasies, or symbolic dramatizations. For centuries, reincarnation remained mostly within the realm of religion, philosophy, and mysticism. But in the last few decades, a new question has quietly emerged from within the scientific community. Could there be empirical evidence that consciousness survives death and returns? While mainstream science remains largely cautious, there's a growing field of serious research examining the boundaries of life, memory, and identity. And some of the findings are difficult to ignore. Perhaps the most compelling scientific contributions come from the work of the Division of Perceptual Studies, DOPS, at the University of Virginia. Founded by Dr. Ian Stevenson and now led by researchers like Dr. Jim Tucker, DOPS has collected thousands of cases of children, mostly between the ages of 2 and 6, who report detailed memories of previous lives. What makes these cases especially powerful is the verifiability of the information. In many instances, the child provides names, locations, and circumstances that are later matched with real people who died before the child was born. Take, for example, a young boy in the United States who recalled being a World War II fighter pilot. He named the aircraft, the ship he took off from, and the friend who flew beside him. All these details were later confirmed through military records. The likelihood that a toddler could fabricate or be coached into such a story, especially with such technical specificity, is extremely low. Cases like this raise serious questions about the nature of memory and its potential sources. Skeptics often explain these accounts as coincidences, parental influence, or confabulation. And while such factors do occur, the statistical rarity of so many highly detailed, cross-verified stories across cultures suggests that something more than fantasy may be at play. Importantly, these children typically show emotional engagement, crying, expressing longing or anxiety when recalling these past life memories, adding to the credibility. Beyond anecdotal evidence, scientific interest in reincarnation is bolstered by research into consciousness itself. Some physicists and neuroscientists are beginning to challenge the materialist view that consciousness is purely a product of the brain. Quantum theories of consciousness, such as those proposed by Roger Penrose and Stuart Hameroff, suggest that consciousness may exist on a quantum level and may not be bound by space and time. If consciousness is not confined to the body, then it is possible that it could exist before and beyond the body. Additionally, near-death experience, NDE research has opened up another frontier. Studies conducted by Dr. Pim van Lommel and others suggest that people who have clinically died and then been revived often report vivid, coherent, and transformative experiences. Some recall events and conversations that occurred in the hospital room while they were unconscious or even flatlined. These phenomena challenge our assumptions about the brain as the sole generator of consciousness. Moreover, the growing field of epigenetics offers insight into the transmission of memory and trauma. While not direct proof of reincarnation, studies show that emotional experiences, especially trauma, can affect gene expression and be passed down across generations. This scientific acknowledgement of memory transmission beyond personal experience lends credibility to reincarnation's central idea that we carry more than what we consciously remember. However, it's important to approach these findings with balance. Scientific methodology requires reproducibility, falsifiability, and peer review. While reincarnation research is compelling, it often falls outside these boundaries due to its reliance on case studies and subjective experiences. Still, just because something isn't easily tested in a lab doesn't mean it isn't real. It may simply require new models of understanding. Critics of reincarnation research point to confirmation bias, cultural influence, and suggestibility as possible explanations. These are valid considerations, and rigorous researchers strive to eliminate them. That said, when children in non-reincarnation cultures like the US spontaneously describe past lives with no prior exposure to the concept, and those lives are historically verifiable, the skeptical narrative begins to unravel. Science, by its nature, evolves. Ideas once dismissed as impossible, like the existence of microbes or the curvature of space-time, are now foundational truths. Reincarnation may lie in that liminal zone, not yet fully proven, but too significant to dismiss. The goal isn't to replace scientific rigor with belief, but to expand inquiry, to make space for mystery, and to listen when the data whispers instead of shouts. As the boundaries of science and spirituality continue to blur, one thing becomes increasingly clear. The question of who we are and where we come from is far more complex and beautiful than we've been taught. In the final chapter of our journey, we'll explore how to live with these insights, not just as ideas or possibilities, but as guiding truths. If we are souls on an eternal journey, how then shall we live in this lifetime with purpose, compassion, and presence? 10. Living with legacy. How to integrate the past without being bound by it. If we are more than this moment, if our lives are chapters in a soul's grand narrative, then how do we live knowing that our stories stretch far beyond a single lifetime? The answer is not to obsess over the past, but to let it inform the present. To live with legacy means to walk through this world conscious of what has come before, while choosing deliberately who we become now. The memories of past lives, whether fully accessible or simply felt through intuition, are not here to burden us. They are here to illuminate. A deep fear may no longer feel like a curse, but a doorway. A persistent dream, a skill that comes effortlessly, or a lesson you're tired of repeating. These are not accidents. They are echoes, and once seen, they ask to be honored. Integration begins with acknowledgement. We don't need to recall every lifetime in vivid detail. What matters is how we respond to the patterns that emerge. Where do you feel stuck, over and over again? What relationships always seem to circle the same emotional terrain? What gifts have been with you since birth, as if carried in your bones? These are signals of continuity, and your awareness of them is the first step toward conscious evolution. Living with legacy also means deepening your presence. Paradoxically, the more we understand the eternity of the soul, the more precious this present moment becomes. Each breath, each decision is part of the arc. When we live as souls having a human experience, every interaction holds meaning. Every choice carries weight. We stop moving through life as if it's a rehearsal. We show up, fully, intentionally. This doesn't mean we avoid pain. In fact, knowing the soul's journey invites us to face it with more courage. Healing becomes sacred work. It's no longer about just feeling better. It's about unwinding karma, completing contracts, and transforming wounds into wisdom. The soul doesn't seek comfort. It seeks expansion. And in every heartbreak, frustration, or challenge, it whispers, "This is part of it. Keep going." Living with legacy also reframes our relationships. We stop demanding perfection. We start recognizing soul contracts. That difficult parent, perhaps a partner in growth from another life. That short but powerful friendship, maybe a reunion, not a beginning. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" we begin to ask, "What am I remembering? What is this here to teach me?" Even our purpose takes on new clarity. Instead of searching endlessly for what to do, we begin to feel who we are meant to be. Often our true calling is hidden not in what we haven't tried, but in what has been with us all along. The archetypes we embody, the truths we carry, the healing we feel compelled to offer. We begin to live not in reaction to the world, but in alignment with the soul. Importantly, living with legacy is not about bypassing the now. It's not about escaping into cosmic theory or losing ourselves in the past. It's about becoming more anchored, more responsible, more awake. Because when we know we've lived before and may live again, we care more deeply about what we create, how we love, and what we leave behind. And what do we leave behind? Not just possessions or accomplishments. We leave behind resonance, the vibration we carried, the kindness we offered, the freedom we embodied. These ripple through the collective, through time, through the souls we've touched, and perhaps will touch again. In the end, living with the legacy of past lives is not about dwelling on who we once were. It's about becoming fully who we are. We are not the stories we've lived. We are the consciousness evolving through them. In each moment we choose love, presence, truth. We are not just healing ourselves. We are completing a story written in stardust, across lifetimes. Let your life now be a masterpiece, not because it is perfect, but because it is awake. If this journey stirred something deep inside you, something ancient, something real, don't let it end here. Like, subscribe, and share this with another soul ready to remember. We're not just living, we're awakening, together. Maybe you've always felt older than your years. Maybe you've met someone and felt you've known them forever. Maybe a place you've never been feels more like home than anywhere else. These aren't coincidences, they are clues. Reincarnation doesn't demand belief. It asks for presence, for attention, for inquiry. If your soul has lived before, then everything you are now is part of something far bigger, far deeper, far wiser. The pain you carry may not be just your own, but the wisdom you hold isn't either. In remembering your past, you empower your present, and from there, you shape your future, not as a reaction, but as a conscious return. If this video stirred something ancient in you, a quiet knowing, a soft ache, or a call to awaken, don't keep it to yourself. Like, subscribe, and share this with a soul you feel you've known before. We're not just watching, we're remembering. Together.